Everybody's been through hard times. Lately feels like really hard times. I've even heard it said, it's always gonna be this way. Well, I believe this too shall pass. Oh, yes. And if you want to, you can even make a change. It doesn't take a whole wide world to make life better. It doesn't take a whole wide world, you betcha. If you want to make a change, start with an attitude of gratitude. See yourself clear in the mirror, then step by step, minute by minute, put your heart and your soul and your love right in it. Yes, see a change. Doesn't take a whole wide world to make this life just a little bit sweeter. It doesn't take a whole wide world, I can, if you want to make a change. Just hang on, work on being strong. Watch what happens step by step, minute by minute. Put your heart and your soul and your love right in it, and then you're gonna see a change. Here's what you do. Choose love. It's what we all respond to. Choose joy in a smile or in a song. Choose hope. It's what we all hold on to. Step by step, minute by minute, put your heart and your soul and your love right in it, and then you're gonna see a change. One more time, everybody. Take a whole wide world to make life better. It doesn't take a whole wide world if you want to see a change. Start with an attitude of gratitude. See yourself clearer in the mirror, step by step, minute by minute. Put your heart and your soul and your love right in it, and then you're gonna see a change. And then you're gonna see a change. You're gonna see a change.
Please pray with me. As we gather on this beautiful fall day, let's just breathe in. Breathe in the colors, just breathe in everything. And as you exhale, go within to your heart center, for that is where God is, within each and every one of us. And I know that God expresses as everyone and everything we see, because God is all there is, and God is all we are. The one power, the one life, the one mind. And I affirm that we are all beautiful, unique expressions of the divine. And today I give thanks for everyone who has had a part in this service. Our volunteers with the setup, hospitality, Cody, our AV master, our musicians, Ken, John, and Karen, my fellow practitioners, and Reverend Jen, whose words will ripple across the planet messages of peace and love. And I know that anyone who worships their higher power worships the one God. Whether they're in a mosque, a temple, a teepee, a living room, or just quietly sitting and meditating. We are all one, and God is all there is. And I know that this week, as we go throughout our days, I invite everyone to remember that we are always surrounded by infinite possibilities, and that we are all God in action, and just release the struggle and let God lead, and let our blessings just fall on us. I release this prayer with a grateful heart and give it over to the universe, knowing that the universe only says yes. I affirm that all is well because all is God. And so it is. Good afternoon. Today I have 3 readings for our words of inspiration. The first one is from Nikos Kazantzakis. In order to succeed, we must first believe that we can. And from Henry David Thoreau, wealth is the ability to fully experience life. And lastly, from our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, we must be convinced that abundance is the natural state of the universe. To experience and accept abundance in our life, we must be convinced that as we conceive and believe, the universe handles the details.
So an interesting thing happens when we start to focus on a specific area of our life. For the most part, we become more aware of things that we're doing and maybe some of the ways and whys and wherefores of what we're doing. And things start to show up more. It's kind of like, when you see, I don't know, what can I think of? Let's say you're out driving along and you see a car or a truck, and it's something that you had in your teens or whatever, and you think it's great or it's beautiful or whatever. And then you start to see it everywhere. It just becomes more aware. Someone draws your attention to something, and then you start to see it every place you go. And so as we've been moving through this month and looking at finances and money, oh my goodness, I don't know how it's going for you, but a whole lot of stuff is showing up for me. And thank you, universe. I'm so thrilled for the reflection, not only in how I spend it, but sometimes in moments when I think I don't have it, or I don't have enough, or which I can't say that that's actually happened for me this last couple of weeks, but that could be happening for any one of you, that we start to look at, okay, how many times do I think I don't have enough? How many times do I spend it and then beat myself up because I probably shouldn't have gone to Starbucks, or I probably shouldn't have, and we do that whole should to death, which is never a good thing. And should is not part of our spiritual practices, in case you did not know that. I wanted to make that clear. So what's been going on for me this last week was a lot of stuff has been showing up, and I'm creating stories around it. So the first thing that happened that I was aware of was this past Monday, I went to Popeye's Fried Chicken. Do not judge me. I will tell you my story. I don't go very often, every once in a blue moon, whatever. Anyway, I did. And I had realized when I was pulling in that I had cash in my wallet. So I pulled out the $10 bill, and I looked at the screen, and of course they have to, mine has to be all specialized, so I order, and I don't think about the $10 bill in comparison with what I was seeing on the screen. I pull up to the window. I've got the $10 bill. The guy's looking at me, and he's the manager. We've talked before. I had to share some insights on how to get rid of his hornets at the speaker thing, but that was a long time ago. Anyhow, so he sees me with the $10 bill, and he gives me an amount of money, and I'm thinking, I have a 10 and I have a 1, but I don't have another dollar. But I have this magical thing in my car. I don't know if you do. Some people used to call it an ashtray, but it's actually a coin holder. And I usually have a ton of quarters in it. And I flipped it open, and I start pulling out the quarters, and I'm realizing that I have given some money to someone recently, and it's not full. So now he's gotten distracted from the window. I don't know what he's doing, and this is minutes. We're talking nanoseconds here. I reach over, I put the $10 bill back in my wallet, I pull out my debit card. And he looks at me and he goes, I already put it in for cash. Do you have $12? Because it was $12.71 or something. I'm like, so now I'm back to counting the change, and I'm pulling it out. And what my brain is saying is, oh my gosh, he doesn't think I have enough money. He thinks I have a problem with this. And that was my story. And so I managed to get him $12 and then gave him the rest of the change, and he was happy and I was happy, and I drove off. And I thought, isn't that curious that the first place we go is, oh my gosh, what are we going to do with this poor person who came to Popeye's drive-thru and doesn't have enough money to pay for their food? And then I got home, and they had given me more pieces of chicken than I asked for. And I thought, well, there's my abundant life right there. Moving through my week, I think it was a day or so later, I went to a massage therapist. And I hadn't seen her in a while, and as she was working on my neck and shoulders, she's telling me that she can give me this special cream that will help with some things, and she can do this for me and do this for me. And then she would put her hand on my shoulder and say, but I'm not going to charge you. And I'm thinking, okay, here it comes again. What is going on here? And then when I was done, she said, I'm going to go ahead and give you an extra 10 minutes because you just need it to relax, and it'll be okay. There won't be any additional charges. And she left the room, and I'm thinking, this is so interesting. If this goes on all week, I am going to be in really great shape by the end of the week. So I want us to think about that for a second, because the stories that were going on with me were that they possibly thought I didn't have enough money. And I didn't feel a need to explain. Whatever, it was what it was. But then what I came to the realization of is, oh my goodness, this is that place I come to almost on a weekly basis. Sometimes I do it monthly, where I go back and look at unexpected income. I go back and reflect on what's happened throughout the week and those times where I got a bargain on something, or somebody discounted something, or someone gifted me something, or someone took me to lunch and they paid for the lunch. And those are opportunities for us to recognize our abundant nature. They're opportunities for us to look at how prosperous we are. And what we want to do is we not only want to say thank you, and we not only want to say thank you, universal wisdom, thank you, spirit, and all of this. We not only want to do that, but we also want to say, well, here's what I'm going to do. And so I took that and a few other little things that happened throughout the week, and I kind of figured out the amount of money and the estimate, and the guys at Popeyes probably got there was probably a bigger tithe from me came out of that one than anything else. And then I add that to my tithe because I want to give back. It has come to me. I have been supported in whatever way, whether I actually needed the support or just got tired of counting the coins. It doesn't matter. I received this beautiful support. So we want to think about how unexpected income influences in our lives, because when we are in that place of feeling like the budget is tight, or the wallet doesn't have what we want in it, or the bank is, I don't know what's going on with the bank, but my money keeps disappearing, whatever that is. When we're in those places, we need to stop, take a deep breath, and go, well, wait a second, let's look at all of the areas of my life where something wonderful has come for me. Something wonderful and beautiful has shown up for me. And then, of course, as part of our spiritual practice, we're taught to give back to that, to tithe on that as well. So I wanted to share that with you because I just thought, if I'm having these type of reflections through the week, I know you are. And so I thought that would be a good place for us to start today. Bob Proctor gives us this quote. The only limits in life are those we impose on ourselves. The only limits in life are those we impose on ourselves. So regardless of where you got the idea of limitation, regardless of who it is that told you to believe things in a different way than you're learning to believe them now, we each get to be accountable for changing our thinking. We each get to be responsible and accountable for making that shift. If we're living in this place of being miserable, of feeling downtrodden, of feeling unworthy, the only person who's going to shift that for us is us. And so we want to keep that in mind, and we want to look at that. So I want to talk about a couple of the myths that have been taught to us in our lives. And the first one is this giant, beautiful myth that comes from the Bible. I think you're all familiar with the Bible. Big, fat book. But anyway, I was taught this, and I don't know if it was taught by, I'm not quite sure how I gleaned the information, but I was taught that a lot of the people in the Bible were very poor, especially Jesus, who we talk about as being a master teacher, a man who walked along with the planet and walked with people at his side and taught the truth of our connection to the divine and how whatever he was doing, we could do it as well. This individual, we have been told, was very poor, and that's not the truth. Joseph and Mary went on a trek one time, and they were looking for an inn. It was I think it was because of taxation. I'd have to go back and look. But anyway, and they were looking for an inn to stay, and they ended up staying in a stable because all of the rooms in the inn were full. They didn't stay in the stable because they didn't have money to pay for the inn. And we have somehow misinterpreted that story and gone to that place of, oh my gosh, spiritual leaders are very poor. Spiritual leaders don't have a space for money. Spiritual leaders are living in the space of poverty. They've given up everything. And what we've done with that story is we've taken it a step further. Therefore, if you are a spiritual leader and you appear to be prosperous, somebody needs to be looking at your books. Haven't we come there? Isn't that kind of where we go? When we talk about some of these amazing evangelists on television shows and these programs, and we look at all this, what looks like a lot of wealth, and we kind of go, yeah. And let's get to the core of what that belief is for each of us, and let's shift that. The Buddha was wealthy. Buddha chose to reject extreme wealth and extreme poverty. So living in that space of having what you need when you need it. I call that abundance. Muhammad was a wealthy trader, and married a rich widow. Muhammad did. Lao Tzu and Sung Chao were both respected government officials and had no indication of poverty. So when we reflect on these and we think about this, we're putting some limitation into some of these stories, into some of these beautiful, beautiful expressions. So what we want to keep in mind is, if you are feeling any type of limitation in your life, it's time to go within and look at your own belief system. Richard Rohr says, money and the soul have never been separate in our unconscious because they are both about human exchanges and therefore divine exchange. Money and soul. I don't know that I ever saw those two words in a sentence together in my entire existence till I saw this quote this week. How beautiful that is as a reminder, because money is, as we said before, is a symbol, but it's also spiritual. It is not just of the material world, unless that's what you choose to make it. So this week you can play with this a little bit. You can take a $100 bill, or you can take, I don't know if you still have one, you can pull out your checkbook, you can look at your bank statement. Whatever whatever it is, look at your investments information. Take something tangible that you can look at in front of you that represents your financial status. And just take a look at it. And bring your awareness to what that means to you, what you have done to accumulate it, and how that is showing up in your life. Just as another place of reflecting. Ask yourself and ask spiritual wisdom to reveal to you what the stories and beliefs have been up until now. Because whatever's been going on in your world, as long as you say up until now, that gives you the opportunity to say, but from this moment forward, I'm having a new experience. I'm creating a new situation. So as we look at this theme we have for the entire year of living in everyday wonder, we can wonder more about our relationship with money. We can wonder more about our relationship with finances. And we can let go of some of these restrictive ideas that maybe we were taught. Because I don't know about you, but there's a number of you in here who are fairly close to my age who could say, yeah, that was Mom's favorite phrase. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough money. We can't afford it. We can't afford it. I remember when my father drove into the driveway. We had just come back from Alaska, and we got stationed back in Colorado Springs, which is where we had lived before he took us to Alaska. And my father pulled in the driveway in a 1961 Cadillac. The year was 1963. So it was used, which that's where my brain went. Oh, how pretty, and it's used. And where my mother went was, she's in the front yard screaming at my father the way she did. Now, it wasn't really screaming, but it was my mother's way. And she's telling him, we can't drive this car. People will think we have money. And I'm sitting there thinking, whoa, why is that a bad thing? And then the kids, you know, Jim and I, my brother and I, jumped in the car. We found out we had electric window openers. We had all these wonderful things going on. It was like, oh my gosh, this is great. This is incredible. We were so excited. And so what we started doing on Sundays as a family exercise was my father drove us just a few miles away from the house around an area in Colorado Springs called Prospect Lake. And if you've ever been there, it's not really a lake, but that's what we call it. And we would drive around Prospect Lake, and when we would see a pop bottle on the side of the road, all we would do is holler. Dad would stop the caddy. We would jump up, grab the bottle, and then we would take him in, and we would get the deposit money back. And my mother lost her mind. Because now we're driving a Cadillac, and we're collecting pop bottles. And I just thought it was massively creative. I thought it was a lot of fun, but that's that. So look at that this week. Take some time and let's just reflect on that and see what shows up for us that can make that different for us. Our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, says this: money is an objective representation, a symbol of an eternal substance, which forever flows and which is forever manifesting itself in the visible world. It's called the demonstration, the manifestation. When we pray for something and something shows up, and something as beautiful and welcoming in most cases as money is a part of that process. So now let's talk about the second myth that we may have been taught. And this one is related to debt and loss. We've been taught not to go into debt. Debt is a bad thing. It's a horrible thing. You don't ever want to owe anybody money. And that's when you purchase something, but you don't really pay for it, and then over time you have to make payments or whatever, whether it's to an individual or to a bank, to a credit card company, that magic word. And we have attached emotion to this. We have attached the idea that there is something incompetent, maybe, something not as aware as it could be if you're having to borrow money, that type of thing. We have the idea that debt creates problems for us. And it can, absolutely it can. That overall consciousness of lack and distrust of ourselves. I can't manage my money, so I'm constantly having to get loans and credit cards, and constantly, it's only going to last so long. Trust me, there's a limit on that. They put it out there. The world of finance put that out there. And so we want to look at that and go, okay, so what is that about? And what I want you to think about is when you put money in your hand, whether it's your credit card or cash or a check, do you kind of have an emotional death grip on it? Do you kind of like have this thing about if I let this go, where am I going to be? What's going to happen to me? Let's look at that and let's allow it to flow freely from us, through us, and onward. Loss in relationship to money is not a true statement because nothing is ever lost in the universe. I was talking to someone not too long ago who had lost their wallet and a chunk of change. And they were just stressed out and there was this whole energy around it. And I said, well, how long ago did this happen? And it'd been like well over a week. And I'm thinking, And I said, well, here's the good news. You might not want to hear it, but here's the good news. Someone needed that money. And it came into their life at exactly the moment they needed it. And you can be thanked for that. And the individual's entire energy, mannerism, everything shifted. I was like, oh my gosh, I did something good for somebody else. I didn't even think about that. And we don't. We want it back. We want to get it back. And I don't know, I'm not going to talk about credit because, I'm not the person to look at regarding financial stuff, but I'm taking care of myself. I am. But I was 19 years old, got my first apartment, and I got an envelope in the mail. It was from a store downtown Colorado Springs called Fashion Bar. And in the envelope, was a credit card, an actual credit. They already approved me and gave it to me. I don't know. I was making $80, $90, $100 a month. I don't even know what it was. A week in my job, and I get this credit card that's worth $150. I was in heaven. Now, my parents, unlike other parents, taught me really, really well. My father was the buy now, pay later plan master. He was really good at that. And so it was like, oh my gosh. And so I took my new credit card and I went shopping. And I spent the entire $150, which started a pattern, but I have corrected that. So anyway, but it's not a bad thing. It's something that we have put into a tangible activity of our lives, and we just have to manage it. We just have to pay attention to it. We just have to look at what our emotional attachment is to it. And then the other myth that we have is shame. There's a lot of shame that we will slap on people about money. And Brené Brown said, shame is the intensely painful feeling that we are unworthy of love and belonging. And so when we look at the idea of shame in our cultures, especially through some of our religious entities, we have been taught that there is a lot of shame around money and guilt. And that's kind of a lose-lose situation, because if you have the money and now you're going to feel guilty about having it, and then if you lose the money or spend it where someone would say is not wise or whatever, now there's shame around that. Oh my goodness. We have got to remove ourselves, detach from that emotional judgment that is going along with the idea of money, and release that. And the best way you can do that is through prayer, through changing your thinking, through that just the awareness of what's going on and shifting that. Our parents did not understand how to deal with the emotional pieces around finances. I know mine did not. I was never given any kind of training, coaching, guidelines on how to shift from that sensation, that awareness of what we're doing with money. What our parents did, at least what mine did, sometimes there was arguments, they didn't argue much. So, my mother didn't understand the financial, I told you this last week about the checkbook. She didn't understand the financial piece. She didn't understand how it worked. She didn't understand how the bank worked. She didn't know where Dad kept the bills that came in that got to be paid. And I don't know if she could have written a check out in her later years to save her life. I don't know that she remembered quite how to do any of that. But so what they did instead was they didn't talk about it, or they kind of hid about it. They hid the idea of money. My dad was very secretive with what we owed, probably because of how he spent But whatever. Anyway, so he was very secretive about where it was. I knew where everything was, but nobody else could find it. And I wasn't talking. Mother could not bribe me. So they didn't talk about it. They were hesitant to address it. The answers we got was just because, no, the answer's no. Don't ask me again, that type of thing. So we kind of got stifled in that. So is there any, so the awareness is that, of course we've got some bizarre ideas. Yeah, I get it. However, we still have the ability to shift that and change that thinking. There are people on this planet who are afraid to have too much money. There is something about that idea of massive wealth that scares us to bits. And again, what is that about? And then we have these comments that we make when we find out about an actor or a sports player or someone that's out there in the public light and the kind of money they're getting, and then we want to grumble about that. And not we, the people here in the room, not we, the people in here, but we, the general idea of public awareness. If you want to change anything about your financial well-being, look at the people you connect with. Look at the people you hang out with. Because our friends are a true reflection of what we believe in our lives. And if we have a lot of friends who are constantly stumbling along and challenged with money and can't ever seem to have enough, it's something to look at. It's just something to be aware of. And if we want to expand our good, then we want to make sure that we're stepping into places where there are people that have that kind of expansive thinking already that we can be a part of. Eric Butterworth gives us this beautiful quote. If ever there is a lack of any kind, whether it is a need for employment or for money or for guidance or even for healing, something is blocking the flow. And the most effective remedy, give. You may be thinking, whoa, but I need to receive. My hands are empty. I need someone to give to me. But you see, under the law of giving, when things get tight, something's gotta give. Look for some way to start the giving flow. I don't care if it's giving a handful of quarters to somebody on the street corner. I don't care if it's putting money in an offering plate. I don't care if it's if it's helping someone that you can see that needs help, support, or a meal. When we give, it comes back to us. And it's such a beautiful, amazing feeling. I had a counseling session with a minister years ago. And at the time, I didn't believe I had enough. I was struggling with finances, and I was struggling with managing the finances, and I had a decent job. There were a lot of dynamics, but what was going on in my head was that I just really didn't have a lot. And so when I scheduled the time to come in for the counseling, I was told, you don't have to worry about any kind of fee. You can pay me in a love offering. Now, for those of you who don't know, a love offering means that whatever's on your heart, that's what you give, which is what I would ask you to do always. If it's not on your heart, if you're not feeling that space for giving, do not. That's not the action you're to make at that moment in time. So when we got to the end of the session, before the final prayer, he said to me, you can go ahead and give me whatever you choose as a tithe, and then I will do a prayer for us. And I wrote out a check for what I thought I could handle, and he took it and turned it over, didn't even look at it, and laid it over to the side of the table and took us into prayer. In that prayer, he said that 10 times what I gave him is going to come back to me. He not only spoke it, he affirmed it, he professed it, and my brain went, dang it, I wish I had written that check out for more money. Now, what I want you to hear with this is, if in fact this is the truth, and I can tell you that it is, in my experience this is the truth, and everything comes back to me tenfold, What am I worrying about? What am I stressing over? Why am I nitpicking the idea of giving? And so in that context, let's take that and let's go into that space that says, okay, well, yeah, so it's going to come back to me. I'm going to let it go. And just let it go. I'm going to close today with an affirmation for us to take with us this week. And this affirmation says, I choose for the energy of prosperity to drench itself upon every area of my life with ease now. Right now, in this moment, right here. Because what we know is that money is a form of divine energy. We don't need to feel ashamed about our interaction with it. We don't have to dumb it down or fake that we're rich or that we have enough or that we have more than enough. We don't have to pretend we don't have healthy, wonderful relationships with money and the abundance of our lives. We can literally take the time now to let go of the old stories, write a new story, create a new idea, move into a new belief, and know that the constant flow of the divine is here for us now in all of its many forms, all of its beautiful many forms. If you missed it and you didn't see that that the leaves on the trees changed colors, and you didn't see that for whatever reason, Spirit allowed those leaves to fall on the ground so you could walk in them and crunch them. If you didn't see it then, you'll get to see it today because it's blowing around everywhere and you can't miss it. Let's pay attention to that abundant nature of God that is coming forth for each of us right here and right now. And let's choose to have that beauty, that love, that peace, and that abundance. Please pray with me. As we simply breathe into this time in this space, we know right here and right now that God is all there is. God is all there is. God is everywhere present. God is in, of, and through all things. And Spirit, God, this divine being, is with each of us right here and right now, living within our hearts, breathing within us, allowing us to look at our good and our greater good, allowing us to have all that we want and more, without judgment, without senses of shame or guilt. We let all those emotions go and we turn those over to Spirit. And so as we just breathe all of this in today, we allow it to just wash over us. We allow it to be part of our reality and our focus throughout this week, knowing we are deserving of all that we have and all that is coming forth for us. As individuals, as families, as community members, as people on planet Earth, we are deserving. It is good, it's perfect, and it's all God. So I give thanks. I give thanks for this day. I give thanks for the beauty of this amazing season. I give thanks for the power of God in all things, and I give thanks for the very privilege we have of speaking our word into law and knowing that God hears everything we say and always says yes. And so we just let it go with gratitude, with thanksgiving for all that we have and all that we are. We let it go, we let it be, and together we say, and so it is.
We're all in this together right now. Let's try and make it better for each other somehow. No one should feel hungry. Everyone should know they're loved. We're all in this together, every one of us. together, together right now. Let's try and make it better for each other somehow. No one should feel hungry, we all should feel love. We're all in this together, every one of us, every one of us. Me and you and me and you. And we know that means the whole world too. No one should go hungry, we all should feel love. We're all in this together, every one of us.
Hello, I'm Reverend Jen Wild, Senior Minister for New Dawn Center for Spiritual Living. New Dawn Center is a global community, and we welcome all people, all paths, all ways of thinking, all philosophies. So know that you are welcome here, and thank you for joining our online community.